The future of Kenya is at risk, but these people are stepping up in a big way. Kenya, known for its vibrant culture and breathtaking landscapes, now finds itself in the throes of intense political turmoil. President William Ruto, during his election, promised change, but the reality has stirred discontent across the nation. Recent events have sparked fury and frustration on a whole new level, sending shockwaves through the nation. Kenyans are feeling a sense of betrayal and anger like never before. Why are Kenyans so furious with their leader? What events unfolded to cause such a deep rift between the people and their president? We've scoured reports, and now we're bringing you the real story behind Kenya's protests. The road to President William Ruto's tenure began with a highly competitive and divisive election campaign. Running as the United Democratic Alliance (UDA) party candidate, Ruto faced a strong opponent in Raila Odinga of the Orange Democratic Movement (ODM), who had the backing of the ruling Jubilee Party and outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta. Ruto's campaign centered on a bottom-up economic model, a key pillar of his platform. He promised to empower small businesses and the youth by providing access to affordable credit and creating a more inclusive economy that would benefit all Kenyans. On August 15, 2022, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, declared William Ruto the winner of the closely contested presidential election. He secured 50.49% of the votes, narrowly crossing the crucial 50% plus one vote threshold required for an outright victory. President Ruto's inauguration speech emphasized his commitment to uniting the country and promoting national cohesion, recognizing the need for healing and reconciliation. He also acknowledged the economic challenges facing the nation and pledged to tackle them head-on. One of his initial actions as president was to form a cabinet that blended seasoned politicians with technocrats, bringing a mix of experience and fresh perspectives to governance. Ruto also appointed Martha Koome as Kenya's first female Chief Justice, a move that signaled a step forward for gender equality in the country's judicial system. True to his campaign promises, President Ruto has continued to champion his bottom-up economic model, launching initiatives like the Hustler Fund to support small businesses and entrepreneurs. He has also prioritized infrastructure development, focusing on completing ongoing projects and initiating new ones, including road construction, dam building, and affordable housing initiatives. These ideas and proposals all sound promising. So what exactly is the problem? Despite his administration's commitment to tackling the country's most urgent issues, President Ruto's tenure has not been without its difficulties. He has faced increasing criticism for his management of the economy, which has been marked by rising inflation, high unemployment rates, and a weakening currency. Central to these issues was the finance bill proposed by the president's administration, which aimed to raise taxes across the board and introduce new ones. Key elements of the bill included a 16% sales tax on bread, a 25% duty on cooking oil, and charges on products contributing to waste and environmental harm. Several other fiscal policies were proposed, including a new annual tax on vehicle ownership, set at 2.5% of the vehicle's value. Import taxes, which had previously been reduced, were raised from 2.5% to 3% of the item's value, potentially increasing costs for importers and consumers alike. The finance bill also introduced a 16% tax on goods and services used exclusively for constructing and equipping specialized hospitals with a minimum bed capacity of 50. This raised concerns among Kenyans about potential increases in healthcare costs. A digital service tax targeting non-resident companies that provide digital services to Kenyan consumers was also proposed. This encompasses streaming services, downloadable software, and online ride-hailing services, with a proposed tax rate of 1.5% of the gross transaction value. Despite President Ruto's numerous campaign promises, including a pledge to lower the VAT rate from 16% to 14% to make goods and services more affordable and stimulate economic growth, only tax increases have been implemented. President Ruto defended the recent financial measures as crucial for alleviating Kenya's substantial debt burden, which now exceeds $80 billion. Like many nations, Kenya has faced fiscal deficits, where government spending surpasses its revenue, which has led the country to rely on both domestic and international loans. The Kenyan government has secured loans from international financial institutions such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund (IMF), and from bilateral lenders including China and Japan. In recent years, Kenya has also tapped into commercial lending by issuing Eurobonds to raise funds in the international capital markets. Ruto has stressed the necessity of increasing tax revenue to tackle these significant financial challenges. However, these tax measures, while aimed at addressing fiscal challenges and funding development projects, have instead ignited a firestorm of debate and concern among the country's citizens. So how are everyday Kenyans affected by these government measures? Protesters argue that it imposes unbearable financial burdens on ordinary Kenyans and businesses, already struggling to keep afloat amidst soaring living costs. The economic climate indicates prices of essential food items skyrocketing this year leading up to June, with staples such as maize, grain, and flour surging by up to 30%, rice and potatoes increasing by nearly 20%, and sugar spiking by a staggering 60%. It is against this backdrop of economic hardship that Kenyans have taken to the streets, expressing their outrage and demanding relief. This is not the first time that tax policies have sparked public dissent in Kenya. Recent protests echo the backlash against 2023's finance law, which also introduced a slew of unpopular taxes. The imposition of new taxes, especially amidst the rising cost of living, has led to deadly street demonstrations, revealing the deep-seated frustration and anger among Kenyans. On June 25th this year, a significant protest unfolded outside the Parliament building in Nairobi, with estimates ranging from several hundred to a few thousand participants. The protest was largely driven by young Gen Z Kenyans and plunged President Ruto's administration into the most severe crisis of his tenure. Protesters were reported to have set fire to a section of the parliament, and images and videos soon circulated online showing smoke billowing from the structure and protesters cheering as the flames spread. Clashes between the protesters and law enforcement soon turned deadly, with reports of police firing live ammunition, resulting in multiple fatalities and numerous injuries. In other recent anti-government demonstrations against tax hikes, at least 39 people have been killed and hundreds more injured across Kenya. In the wake of this turmoil, President Ruto apologized for the police brutality that marred protests. However, the demonstrations have evolved into a broader movement, with calls for Ruto's resignation and demands for accountability from the security forces taking center stage. However, did the protests lead to actual changes in Kenya's government? In late June, President Ruto was later compelled to withdraw his controversial finance bill. To tackle the national debt, he chose a different strategy, announcing a series of spending cuts to offset the cancelled tax hikes. Key measures included suspending the purchase of new vehicles for state officials, enforcing retirement for public servants at 60, dissolving 47 corporations with redundant functions, and significantly curbing non-essential travel for government officials. Additionally, he proposed reducing the number of government advisors by 50%. Originally, the bill aimed to raise $2.7 billion through tax increases, but the new compromise plan seeks to cut $1.39 billion from the budget, with the remaining deficit to be covered through borrowing. While the protests and the subsequent withdrawal of the finance bill signify a victory for the people, underlying issues remain. Kenyans continue to face economic hardships, and the government's efforts to address these challenges are closely watched. In an effort to address growing discontent, President Ruto participated in a 3-hour X-Space session called #EngageThePresident on July 15th, directly engaging with the public. The discussion was hosted by the president's spokesperson and Kevin Manari, a well-known online content creator and protest leader. The event attracted over 150,000 listeners. During the session, President Ruto faced intense questioning and accusations of lying and lacking empathy from furious anti-tax protesters. The president also confirmed that the bill had indeed been withdrawn, alleviating the fears of protesters who were concerned that it might still become law after 21 days, given that it had already been passed by Parliament. Despite this, the president defended many of his bill's proposals, asserting that they were widely misunderstood. He emphasized that these measures were intended to support and boost Kenyan businesses. Kenyans remain agitated, and President Ruto has even come under fire for his frequent travels abroad. The Kenyan newspaper The Standard dubbed him the Flying President, highlighting the stark contrast between his globetrotting and the daily challenges faced by Kenyans. Since taking office, he has embarked on numerous trips, averaging over 3 per month. with approximately 50 foreign visits to date. This discontent has fostered resentment and disillusionment among the populace, who perceive their leaders as indifferent to their everyday challenges. Many Kenyans argue that governmental decisions often prioritize the wealthy and powerful over the needs of the broader population. The future remains uncertain amidst this turmoil. Will President Ruto continue to find alternatives to address the economic hardships facing Kenyans, or are these protests the beginning of something bigger in Kenya? We will be keeping a close eye on Kenya and, of course, the wider region. Make sure to check out the next video to see what is happening elsewhere on the continent.